Skyward Sword HD. So I didn't have a Wii back in the day, so I didn't play this game. But I've read a couple articles of people kind of defending the game, and then other people talking about how it was their most disliked Zelda game, and I wanted to kind of understand that. So basically, Skyward Sword was released on the Wii in 2011, and from my understanding, in the kind of the lore of Zelda or of the universe, it's chronologically at the beginning. Is that true?
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay. Now, the main thing I read about this game that people that there was mixed results, but if you look at the ratings, I think it's mostly accepted as a good game. There was just a lot of people that had some issues with it, and from doing my research, the biggest issue that people had seemed to be the combat system, and it had to do with the way that you held the Wii remotes, and it was hard to slash the sword accurately in certain parts of the game, which led to frustration for the players. Now, to solve this issue, from what I understand, they're, uh, they're, they hope that the Joy Cons are more accurate. I mean, it's newer technology. The Switch is newer technology. So using the Joy Cons, you can still, pull up your shield and slash at angles, but it's going to be more accurate than the Wii. And then they're adding a static controller mode for the DS Lite, but also controllers, where the sword angle is now controlled by the right joystick. And so I think um, you guys probably know more than me because you probably played the game, but I think that should solve the combat issue with the game. I mean, what do you all think?
John.
Yeah, so the motion controls that were the only way to engaging was definitely one of the complaints about that game. But for me, the bigger complaint was how you interacted with the world. It was like a pseudo sort of traditional type of Zelda game, and the other part being what eventually led into what Breath of the Wild became. Like like jumping into these, you would fly in the air on these skylofts, your mode of transportation, and then jump into these small little zones, and then you would often have to jump into these zones multiple times to progress the story, and then it kind of got kind of stale at that point. Not to mention you have to fight some of these boss characters multiple times with tiny little changes in between them. Um, but with the new control system, I think it's a good way to incorporate sort of the very directionally specific combat in the game without uh, while including the ability to be played on something like a Switch Lite. I just wonder how they're going to incorporate camera controls when the combat has been relegated to the second joystick or the second Joy-Con. I don't understand how they're going to do that.
Okay, yeah, that's a good point.
3D camera movement it's a big element of the combat itself in Zelda games. So to are they going to just remove 3D combat or camera control entirely? I don't know. That could be problematic.
Well, I mean, in regards to something like the N64, I think they went ahead and well, yeah, you didn't have a secondary camera in the original anyway. I think it's all about Z targeting.
Well, yeah, they had the C buttons. You would use the face buttons to move the camera around. But
Yes,
I
yes.
don't think it was. It would be.
But Z targeting is what took care of any kind of combat. Like you always be locked onto your characters, and you
Yeah.
needed to be because of the combat system itself. Which I mean that goes at again to the issue with the game. Aside from the progression and story, which I had an issue with the story, I thought the art was fantastic. They were trying to do like a watercolor type feel to it. But in terms of combat, Geo, in order to bring it kind of like into some kind of comparison, just think of playing Breath of the Wild for 80 hours doing this all the time for everything, it gets tedious. It's annoying. Um, it's much easier to just press a button than it is to keep
Yeah.
flicking your wrist. And it wasn't necessarily one to one. It was around the same time they released the Wii Remote Plus, so they were really trying to sell it that like, hey, look, we've improved motion controls. But motion controls are motion controls, and I think people got tired of them.
Yeah.
At least I did.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And I read a lot of people's comments on it, and they were like, some people were saying like how they would do boss fights, and there was like particular moves where you would have to strike at a certain angle, but
Yes.
they couldn't get it, and they would die, and it would like completely frustrate them. So
Here's a story. When I went to go ahead and get the original Wii on launch night, they had Twilight Princess. And I played Twilight Princess for maybe 5-10 hours, and I returned it and got the Twilight Princess on GameCube instead. So I can
oh,
play with button controls rather than motion controls.
okay. Okay. All right.
That's how I feel about it.
Okay. Okay. All right. Um so yeah, there you have it, everyone. It's a have to. We'll wait and see if it transitions good to the
We
Switch.
should also talk about the fact that it's releasing for $60 with minimal changes to the actual game. They're upgrading the frames per second to 60 locked, presumably, 1080p presumably, or I think 1080p is actually confirmed, and some new motion controls or a new combat system for 60.
It should be 4K unlocked.
4K,
There.
And as
144 frames per second.
Yeah, exactly.
As a
160
reminder, the game
minimum.
is sold on the Wii U eShop for $20. So yeah, not my favorite pricing strategy there.
And here's the thing,
Very
comparatively speaking to a recent release, which is Super Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury, at least you got extra content, additional content. In this one, you don't really get any new content. You do get another play style. Another comparison is Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze. You got Funky Kong
Mhm.
and new ways of playing that way. So, I mean, it's kind of par for the course for Nintendo to charge 60, but at the same time, is it really worth it? What do you think, John?
No, absolutely not. If they were to pack in, and this is kind of a point of contention with the whole direct itself, if they had packed in Twilight Princess and Wind Waker, $60 for sure would be a value, would be a steal. But they only pack in one 10-year-old game with minimal improvements for $60 is doing the opposite. Nintendo's stealing from us.
Yeah, it's not remastered. And here's the thing. That sells itself. Just call it the Triforce Collection. You get these 3 games, boom.
That's a great name for it too.
Yeah, they would never do that, man.
$60 per.
Yeah, it's too good. It's too good. All right. So yeah, you guys.
I did though. I want to make one more addendum to that, and I know John's gonna agree. I did like how Aonuma was like, "Hey everyone, if you played Breath of the Wild, there are some aspects of this game that made it into Breath of the Wild." It's like, yo, if you play Breath of the Wild and you go back to this game, they're not the same. Just a heads up.
You will be disappointed.
You will be disappointed.
Yeah.
But for someone who hasn't played a game like you, George, and if you want to get more acquainted with the Zelda universe, you should probably get it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't honestly, I don't have a Wii, so there's no way for me to even buy like a used copy and play the old one.
Wii U?
No.
It was released on the Wii U too. It's $20, like I said.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you guys bring up a lot of great points, and I'm sure you informed a lot of people on it.
Millions.
We're almost at 100 subscribers, by the way.
I mean, that's how it spreads.
Yeah.